What's up guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Hyprland again. This is going to be the second video I'm making about Hyprland, and this is basically an improvement on my previous video on how to get Hyprland up and running a little bit easier, a little bit quicker, and a little bit neater in my opinion. So let's get started. I'm Saul, let's do tech. First thing, I want to say thank you to all the support. You guys are amazing. Thank you very much for all the positive feedback and for supporting my channel by subscribing. I really appreciate it. With that said, there were some negative feedback as well, mainly with some issues with the script. I hopefully took all those negative feedback and packed it into this V2 version that I'm hoping is going to be a lot better for everybody. I added some additional error checking and additional functionality to the script to make it easier for the installation process. So I hope you guys like this new version, and I just wanted to showcase it real quick before we jump into the actual work. All right, so let's take a quick look at the HyprV2 project. As you can see, a very similar directory structure. I'll go ahead and run the script. As you can tell, I've cleaned it up a little bit so it's easier to follow. I'm also going to check for yay in the script, and if it's not installed, I will install it for you so you don't have to worry about that part anymore. Same thing for the packages. When we install packages, I will first check to see if they're installed. If they're installed, I will skip them. If they're not installed, I will install them and confirm that they actually have been installed before we move on. Similar thing for the configuration files. I know some of you are going to run this on existing systems with configs. I don't want to overwrite your configs, so I will check to see if the configuration directory is there. If it is, I'll back it up, and then I'll copy the config in the script over to the location, but there will be a backup. So hopefully this takes care of a lot of the issues that were happening with the script. And here, let's go ahead and go into the config directory because I did have an installation here. And if I do an ls, you can see that those configurations have been backed up with a dash back. All right, so let's get started with installing Arch. I'm not going to cover creating a bootable USB in this video. I will link my previous video where I described that process in the description, so feel free to check that out if you need help with that. But moving forward, we'll assume that we're booting off that USB and we're starting the installation of Arch Linux. All right, so here we are all booted up and ready to go. Now, if you are connected to the internet with an Ethernet cable, you can skip this next command. This command is for people that are using Wi-Fi. So if you're using Wi-Fi, we have to connect the system to your Wi-Fi network, and we'll use the iwctl command. And the first thing we want to do after we enter this utility is we want to make sure that we can see what's going on. So we'll use station wlan show so we can see what's happening. And the first thing is after that is to scan. So we'll up key and we'll change show to scan. And as you can see, it's scanning now. And now I think we're ready to connect. So we'll just up key and change scan to connect. And we'll type our SSID over here. So for me, it's sol-deck-Wi-Fi, and I hit enter. And now it's going to ask me for my Wi-Fi password. I'm going to go ahead and punch that in. There we go. And hit enter. And as you can see, we're connected. So we're ready to go. We're sending packets. We're ready to go. And next we'll type quit and hit enter. All right, so now we're ready to update the keys. So we'll type pacman-key --init. And that's going to grab the latest GPG keys that we need just to make sure the installation goes smoothly. After that, we'll up key and we'll change the init to --populate Arch Linux, and that's going to grab everything that we need. And once that's completed, we can just type Arch install and hit enter. All right, so this is going to actually kick off the Arch install script, which is a really nice utility, and there it is. So first thing is our language, that looks good, English, and then keyboard layout, US, it's fine. And now we pick our mirror region, so we can scroll up and down in here in this list, or we can just / and start typing. For me, it's United States, so here it is, and I'll hit enter. And that sets up all the locales. And now I'm going to pick the drive that I want to install to, so click on that. All right, and here's a list of all the drives in my system. As you can see, the USB that I'm booted from is also listed there. I'll go ahead and pick my internal SSD drive and hit enter. And now I'm prompted to decide a disk layout. So I'm going to pick the wipe all If you're following along, just be careful. This means that it will delete everything off your drive. So I'm going to pick white ball and hit enter. And I'm prompted for which file system I would like to use. And I like to use ext4. You can use whichever file system you like. For me, it's going to be ext4. And now it's going to ask me if I want to create a separate partition for home. I'm going to say no to that. Again, it's your preference. If you want to do that, you can leave the default. It's up to you. I'm not going to use disk encryption. And for bootloader, this time I will use the systemd. So I'll just leave the default. I like to use grub, but for this installation, let's just do systemd and see how well that goes. All right, I'm not going to touch the swap. Leave it exactly the way it is. For hostname, I'll keep hostname the way it is. We can change that later. I'm not going to set a root password, so that's fine. And now we have to create a user. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to click on add a user. And I'll type my username, so Saul, and my super complicated password. And I'll repeat it again. And I want to make sure this is a super user, so I'll switch to yes. And everything looks good, so I'll go ahead and click on confirm and exit. Next is the profile, so we'll click on that. And there's 4 profiles: desktop, minimal, server, and Xorg. This is going to be a minimal installation, so we'll click on minimal. And now we pick an audio server, so we need to pick Popwire for that. And leave the kernel the way it is, nothing to change there. Additional packages, we do need some additional packages. The first one is Git. We do need Git to be installed. We'll hit space. And then I like to use NeoVim. You can use any editor you like, but NeoVim is the one I like to use, so I'll type that in there and hit enter. And then next is the network configuration, so we'll click on that. And we want to use Network Manager. So we'll select that. And time zone, same as region. You can scroll up and down in here, or you can hit the / and start typing your zone. For me, it's going to be Los Angeles area. Hit enter. Leave automatic time. And optional repos, we do want to use the multi-lib just in case. And everything looks good, so we'll hit install. All right, so what's going to happen now is your system is going to reach out to the internet. It's going to grab a whole bunch of packages and install it. That process could take some time. So I recommend to get a nice cup of coffee and watch it. Make sure everything looks good. There's no errors. I'm going to fast forward. You can pause the video right now if you're following along, and we'll catch up once everything completes. All right, so once we reach this stage, that means everything is already installed and ready to go. At this point, I'm going to click on No. That's going to put me in the command prompt. And now I'm going to give the system a command to reboot. I'm just going to type reboot and hit enter. All right, so here we are on a fresh new Arch installation. And don't worry about the error on the screen. That has to do with my capture card. So you'll most likely not see that. Let's go ahead and type in our username and our password, hit enter. So we are logged in. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we can access the internet. If you're connected with Ethernet cable, most likely you're ready to go. We just have to make sure that DHCP and DNS did what they're supposed to do. So one way to do that is to use the ping command. So we'll just type ping, and we can ping archlinux.org. Now, as you can see on my system, that did not work because I am on Wi-Fi. So to connect to Wi-Fi, we'll type this command, nmcli device Wi-Fi connect, and that will put in the SSID of your Wi-Fi network. So for me, it's soltastech-Wi-Fi. Then we'll type password, and we're actually going to type the actual password for the network. So mine is going to be blurred out. And then we'll hit enter. And it's going to give us a confirmation. There it is. It told us that it was able to connect. And now if I do a ping again, I'll actually get a response back. So we'll just make sure. And here we go. So it's giving me a reply back. And I can go ahead and Control-C to exit out of that. And I'll clear my screen. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we're sitting in our home directory. We can verify which directory and by typing pwd. If we're not in our home directory, we can just type cd and hit enter, and that's going to put us back in our home directory. And next we want to clone the repository, so we'll hit git clone https://github.com/sol-tech /hyprv2.git and hit enter. And that's going to clone the repo to our local system. And let's take a look. There it is. Let's cd into it. And let's take a look at the file system. So now we want to make the sethypr script executable. So we use chmod +x sethypr, and let's verify. Okay, it's executable. And now we can go ahead and run the sethypr script. All right, so now we're setting some expectation. This is not designed to run on a virtual machine, so just take a note of that. Also, NVIDIA GPUs are not fully supported, so make a note of that. And now we get the option, do we want to continue or we want to exit? I'm going to continue, so I'm going to say yes. And now we see a reminder that this script does use sudo, so you will be required to enter your password at some point. And the script, notice that Yay is not installed, and it's asking us if we would like to install Yay. So Yay is required. I'm going to say yes to that. And now it's going to prompt me for my password. So I'm going to type that in and hit enter. And now the installation of Yay has started. This may take a few minutes. Now it's asking me if I want to disable the Wi-Fi power save. Since I'm using Wi-Fi, this is actually going to improve my connection, so I'm going to say yes to that. So now it's telling me no, it created this file, and it's restarting the network manager. All right, now it's going to ask me if I want to install the packages, which obviously I do. So I'm going to hit yes, and it's going to start the installation process. This is stage 1. There are 3 stages of the installation. I kind of divided the packages up to 3 different stages. What it's doing is it's going to check to see if the package is installed. If the package is not installed, it's going to download it and install it, and then it's going to verify that it actually was installed. And if it finds it after the installation and everything looks good, it's going to give us an OK. If it wasn't able to find it, it will give us an error and it will exit the script. If that happens, you can run the script one more time, or you can also check the install log, which it does create, to see where the error was. As you can see, it already installed Hyprland, and now it's moving on to Kitty, and next is the Waybar. So again, this is 3 different stages, and it's going to take a while, so just let it run. And if it finds anything, it will actually tell us that it found it and there's no need to install, so it will skip it. So this is okay to run on a system that already has packages in it. It's not going to try to reinstall your packages. Please note that this process can take a while to finish. What it's doing, it's actually downloading large packages from the internet and compiling and installing them onto your system. So it can take some time. Like I said, there are 3 stages. We're on stage 1. I'm going to fast forward to kind of show stage 2 and stage 3, but on your system, it's obviously going to take a little bit longer than the video. So just keep that in mind and let the script do its thing. So here we are on stage 2 of the installation. Again, this is going to install additional packages, so it will take some time. And here we are on stage 3, which is the last stage of the software installation. Alright, so now we're going to start a couple of services, and then it's going to ask me if I want to copy over the config files. I'm going to say yes to that, and just a note, this is safe to do on a system that already has existing configs, as it will back up your configs. And the next thing is it's going to ask me if I want to install the Starship shell, and I do want to do that, so I'm going to say yes. It's completely up to you if you want that customization. I think it looks neat, so I'm going to go for it. And then if you have an Asus ROG laptop, you may want to install the supported software from asus-linux.org. Great utilities for your Asus ROG laptop. So I'm going to say yes, since I do have a ROG laptop and I would like those tools to be installed. So it's going to go through and add the repo and actually update the system and install the software. Alright, now with everything installed, the script is going to prompt us and give us the option to start Hyprland. If we say no here, it's going to put us back in the command prompt, but I do want to start Hyprland, so I'm going to click yes. And that's going to give me the login screen via sddm. So now we actually have a graphical login screen, which is going to make it a lot easier to get into Hyprland. So I'm going to type in my password and hit enter. And if everything works, Hyprland should come up, and there it is. And as you can tell, it's a little bit different than the first version of my script. I did change some things around, couple of surprises. I'm going to go over them in a second. All right, so let's take a look at this config because it's a little different than the previous config. I did move some things around and also added some functionality. So we'll start with the far top left corner where I added an icon for a launcher. So when you click on that icon, which is the Arch logo, you'll get the graphical launcher. So you can still use your keyboard commands, which will be super space for my config to actually open up the launcher, or you can use the icon, so it's up to you. Next are the workspaces. I moved them around so they're a little bit closer to the launcher. It makes a little bit more sense, easier to follow. Then after that, we have our CPU usage. So this will show you how much CPU you're currently using, and as well as memory. So this is how much memory is currently being used. When you mouse over, it shows you the amount. Same thing for disk space. So when you mouse over that, it will show you how much disk space is consumed. And when you click on any of those, just a regular click, it will launch BTOP. BTOP is a resource monitor. It kind of gives you a nice overview of what's happening with your system. And then to exit BTOP, just hit the Q key on the keyboard. And next are the window title goes over here. So when you have a window that's open, it will show you the title. And next to the clock, right in the center there, there's the lock. So when you click on that, it will lock your screen. In between the lock and the clock, there is actually an updater. Shows you how many updates are available. And then when you click on that updater, it would actually start up an update session using Yay. So I'll just type in my password here to demonstrate. And here are my updates. And I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to ask me if I want to install. I'm going to say yes and hit enter. And when it's done, it's going to close on its own. Now, the number up there will update eventually, but right now it's still sitting at 4. Next is the clock. When you mouse over it, it'll show you the date. And next to the clock, we have the power button. When you click on that, it will let you either lock the screen, log out, suspend, reboot, or shut down the system. And next is our temperature for the system. So this shows you one of the zones. And when you click on that, also opens up the BTOP because there is some more thermal information inside BTOP. I'll hit Q to close. And over here, this is from the Asus ROG software. I have a way of switching the power profiles here. So when I click on them, they switch around. And then next to that, this is the battery indicator as to how much battery I have on my laptop. Next is screen brightness. So you can use the scroll wheel up and down to increase or decrease the brightness of your screen. And then it's the volume for the speakers. Same thing with your scroll wheel up and down, and this will increase and decrease your volume. Same thing for your microphone input. Use the scroll wheel up and down. Now when you click on it, it will mute both the microphone, and you can do the same thing for the speakers. Another click will unmute. And then if you right click on it, it opens up a graphical interface to manage your audio inputs and outputs. And I'll do Super F4 to close this. Next is the sys tray, and in here we have a couple of applets running. First one is for network. So if I click on it, I can see some network information, and I can actually manage my Wi-Fi networks from there from a graphical interface. When I click on edit, here it is. And again, I'll do Super F4 to close this screen. And right next to that, we have the Bluetooth manager. Same deal. So right click on it, and here's some information. And same thing, if I want to actually see devices, I'll click on that, and that will show me devices that are available over Bluetooth. And same thing here, I'll just do Super F4 to close it. And next is the weather. So this is a little weather script, and it kind of shows us the weather, and pretty nice day. And the next icon, this is a little fun icon that I added. I thought it would be fun to have. So this is going to let you have different kind of themes. So when I click on it, it's going to switch to light mode, and it changes the background, it changes the Waybar. and it also changes the drop-down menus. I'll actually open up the file browser Thunder here with Super E, and as you can see, if I click on this, switch back to dark mode, it changes the theme on that as well. The next item is we need to install a browser. So I don't install a browser with my script because everybody has their preferences. My preference happens to be Chromium. So I'm going to show you how I install Chromium once I get the system up and running. So I'll do Super Q, and then I'll type yay-S Chromium. And I'll hit enter. It's going to ask me for my password. So I'll type that in and hit enter. And here's all the dependencies. And I'm going to say yes and hit enter, and it's going to install everything for me. And then I'll use my graphical launcher to launch Chromium. And here we go. Well, the first thing I like to do is open up the settings and then head on over to Appearance and make sure I'm using the GTK theme. And the next thing is over here on the top, I'm going to erase it. I'm going to put Chrome : / flags. And then in the search bar, I'm going to type Wayland. And these are two things we need to change. So the first one is for Pipewire. I'm going to enable that. And the next one, I'm going to make sure it's set to Wayland. And then I'll click Relaunch. Now, even with that being relaunched, I like to close it and reopen it. Okay, so now that we're ready, let's see if the theme is going to work. And here we go. So theming is also working with that. That's one of the reasons why I like to use Chromium, because it does theme pretty well. All right, next let's talk about the config, because that's really what drives Hyprland. So we'll take a look at that. I'll go ahead and launch Kitty using Super Q. Let's do an ls and take a look at the home directory. So you see we have two files here. The first is a directory, which is what we downloaded from GitHub. The second file is the start hyper file. This one actually is the file that launches Hyprland. So let's open that up. And as we can see, we have some exports in here, and it's very important that we don't delete this file, because this is what sddm is referencing. So if you delete this file, your graphical login will not work. Down below, there's an area for you to add your own exports. And all the way on the bottom, there's some experimental environment variables that you can use to try to get the NVIDIA GPU support to work. Again, there's no guarantee. There's a link to the wiki there, but you can give it a shot if you have an NVIDIA GPU. All right, let's do an ls-la to see everything. And as we can see, we still have a few other directories in our home directory, but the one we want to focus on is the .config. So let's go in there and let's do an ls in here. And here's all of our config directories for the various software that we installed. We're going to cd into the hyper directory, which is the Hyprland configuration, and we'll take a look in there. And we have a few files in here. Here's the backgrounds. There's some scripts folder. The main hyprland.conf file, so this is the main configuration file, and then we also have our ROG-G15 specific binds configuration file. So we're going to focus on the hyprland.conf file, so let's take a look at that. All right, so on the very top, we have our monitor set up. Right now it's set to preferred. I did leave some information below to my monitor setup, so you can use that as a reference to update your config to have higher resolution and different refresh rates. That's down here below. One thing I want to note is to kind of get an idea of your output. If you open up another screen here inside Hyprland and you type hyperctl space monitors and then hit enter, it will show you the various ports and the type of monitors are currently connected. So as you can see, I have my EDP, which is my laptop screen, and there's a HDMI, which is my capture screen, running at 1920 by 1080 at 60 Hertz. All right, let's close that. All right, moving down the list, we have a section where we launch various applications on startup. And there's various sections. They're all very well documented on the wiki, and there's links to the wiki still inside the config, so you can use that if you want to make any kind of edits. Now in this section we have some window rules. This is where I tell specific applications that I would like them to float and not be tiled. You can replicate that for your various needs. And same thing in this rule section where I tell it how to pop in or how to slide in, and the opacity of different applications based on their application type or title. Alright, so in this section we set our keybinds. The first one is super Q, which opens up Kitty. Next one is super and F4, which closes an active window. The next one after that is super L, and that locks the screen. So let me demonstrate. And you can just type your password and hit enter to unlock. One thing this will also do is show you how many bad attempts were made. So here I'll punch in a bad password. And when I attempt to type it again, it will show you the number 1, which just tells me that one bad attempt was made. Next one is the logout screen. So when I do super M, it will show me the logout options. And then super shift M will actually force exit Hyprland. So keep that in mind. This is super E, and I will open up Thunder, which is a graphical file manager. And then super V will switch between tiling mode to float mode. So you can basically make a window float around. You can stretch it around, move it around. I'll show with a second window here. I'll open up another Kitty session, and I'll make that float. And I'll make it a little bit smaller, and I'll move it around. And then I'll switch between the windows. Here we go. And I'll close this window out and go back to tiling mode with super V. Here we go. Next is our graphical launcher, and that will be super and the space key. So let me demonstrate. And let me demonstrate the super P and super J. So here we go. With super J, you kind of flip the tiling mode around. And now I'll hit super P. Here we go. The next item is super S, and that allows us to take screenshots. So let me demonstrate. Hit super S, and now I can select an area of the screen, and I can screenshot that area. All right, next let's talk about the Waybar config. That's obviously an important component of our deployment, so let's take a look at that config file. All right, so let's open up Kitty with super Q. Let's go ahead and cd into the .config folder and into the Waybar folder. Let's do an ls. And here is our config file for the Waybar. So let's open that up. In the very top section here, this is where we kind of set up our modules for the Waybar. So we have left, center, and right. Pretty self-explanatory. As you can see, the various modules are called in there in their order. And then below that, this is where we actually specify the various actions for each of the module. So a good example, here's the launcher, which is a custom module. And as we can see, we have the format, which is basically the icon. And we have what it's going to do on click. So this is the one right there. And this is where it's defined. You can see it's the first one on the left. And here's another example. This is the lock screen module. As you can see, it's the first one in the center. And there it is right there. And we define exactly what it's going to do. So this is where you can actually go in and customize your Waybar to function and look the way you would like it to look. I encourage you to get in here and move things around and play with this. And don't worry, if you mess anything up, you still have a copy of the config, and it's always available on my GitHub, so you can always get it if you need to go back to the original config. All right, next I want to take a quick look at the style file, which is basically what allows us to control how things are looking on the Waybar. So this is where you will set colors and sizes of various things. Over here, this is kind of an area where all the different modules get the similar look and feel. So same background, same opacity, same kind of padding. And then these two sections down here, this is where they get their closing borders. Whether it's to the left or to the right, get those rounded corners. So again, just with the config, I will encourage you to go in here and play around and change colors and change things around and make this your own. You know, just make it feel the way you would like it to be. And that's what's great about this this configuration. It's very flexible, and it will let you have a system the way you want it to look and feel. Thank you for watching the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. Please also consider subscribing to the channel, and thank you for everyone that already has. If you have any questions, please hit me up in the comment section. I do my best to answer all questions in a timely fashion. Thank you again. I'm Sol, wishing you a nice rest of your day.